Are you a domestic violence advocate, homelessness service provider, federal or state housing provider, private or corporate landlord receiving third-party payments, or just interested in learning more about the Violence Against Women Act? Well, you are in the right place. Did you know that millions of domestic violence survivors also struggle with homelessness? In fact, upwards of 50% of homeless women report that domestic violence was the immediate cause of their homelessness. This is why the Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA, provides housing protections to survivors of domestic violence, as well as dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, and human trafficking. In VAWA documents, these abuses are known collectively as VAWA violence or abuse. Anyone of any sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, or marital status who has experienced the abuses covered under VAWA can also be protected under VAWA. So, unmarried women? Yes. Men? Yes. LGBT folks? Yes. Whenever possible, we should provide services to all individuals who present as domestic violence survivors. So what housing protections are covered under VAWA? In this video, we'll review several important protections that VAWA covers. For a more comprehensive list, please refer to the HUD website or links in the description. But here are a few important protections to be aware of. The right to report. This means people have the right to seek law enforcement or emergency assistance without being penalized by their landlord, law enforcement, or other government entity. For example, let's say Cindy has to call the police multiple times a month because her abuser comes to her apartment and acts violently. Her landlord might think this is creating a nuisance for the neighbors and looks bad for his realty company. With right to report, Cindy's landlord cannot threaten to evict her, charge her a fee, or otherwise punish her for seeking assistance due to her abuser's actions. The right to report applies to all people, regardless of whether they are a survivor or if they live in federally subsidized housing. In addition, people cannot be penalized due to criminal activity if they were the victim or were not at fault. VAWA also protects survivors from housing discrimination based on their survivorship. Housing discrimination includes things like eviction, termination of a lease, or denying someone admission to their residence. VAWA protections also offer survivors with options and choice around moving to a safer residence, typically an emergency transfer, or remaining in their current unit once an abuser has been evicted and removed from the lease, known as lease bifurcation. With lease bifurcation, the survivor has the right to qualify for the housing or given a reasonable amount of time to relocate. VAWA also protects survivors from retaliation by the housing provider. For example, preventing the housing provider from using criminal activity that has been directly related to violence or abuse covered under VAWA as a means to deny occupancy on a new lease or renewal of a lease. For a more comprehensive list of protections, see hud.gov/VAWA or the links in the description. So, what kind of housing is covered by VAWA? There are many housing programs that must adhere to VAWA housing protections. In general, VAWA applies to all housing that is subsidized through the federal government. This includes continuum of care, homelessness programs, OVW transitional housing programs, public housing, project-based Section 8, rural development multifamily housing programs, and many more. For a full list from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, please see the resources linked in the description available through hudexchange.info. Keep in mind that current protections only apply to federally covered housing programs. Please check your state and local laws for additional housing protections. Everyone deserves a safe place to call home. VAWA housing protections are a critical lifeline for survivors of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, and human trafficking. By ensuring access to safe, stable housing without fear of discrimination or retaliation, these protections help survivors to rebuild their lives with dignity and security. Stay informed through trusted resources like hud.gov/VAWA and those listed in the description. Please reach out to the PCADV Housing Team if you want further training on VAWA housing protections, or if you need guidance on how to support a survivor with filing a fair housing complaint with HUD FHEO or the PA Human Relations Commission.